Herzlich willkommen zum Online-Marketing-Rockstars Podcast. Diese Woche ein neuer Partner, und zwar eine der größten deutschen Anwaltskanzleien, die Anwaltskanzlei CMS Hasche-Siegle mit Büros überall in Deutschland, aber insbesondere auch einem Büro in Hamburg, von dem wir wissen und die wir gut kennen, die Kollegen dort im Hamburger Büro, dass sie sich sehr, sehr gut mit Online-Marketing, E-Commerce, digitalen Geschäftsmodellen auskennen und natürlich entsprechend immer den rechtlichen Fragestellungen, die sich daraus ergeben. Entsprechend haben wir mit den Kollegen auch jetzt im Rahmen des Festivals eine gemeinsame Masterclass arrangiert. Am 3.3. um 14.30 Uhr geht es um das Thema Social Media und Recht. Ihr könnt euch über unsere Website dafür anmelden. Alle möglichen Fragestellungen werden da diskutiert. Urheberrechtliche Fragestellungen, kennzeichenrechtliche Fragestellungen, Nutzerverhalten analysieren, ja oder nein. Also diese Themen, die man wahrscheinlich ohnehin hat oder demnächst irgendwie haben wird. Wenn ihr solche Fragen habt oder demnächst habt, denkt an CMS, denkt an uns, wir machen gerne eine Intro, kommt zur Masterclass oder wendet euch direkt an die Kollegen bei CMS unter omr@cms-hs.com. Gibt es, glaube ich, die Sofortversorgung aller rechtlichen Fragestellungen im digitalen Marketingbereich oder auch darüber hinaus. Wir würden uns freuen. In dem Fall nicht viel Spaß, sondern viel Erfolg. Es geht ja um rechtliche Themen. Machen meistens keinen Spaß, aber sind halt wichtig.
Der Online-Marketing-Rockstars Podcast. Im Gespräch über digitales Marketing und manchmal, was sonst noch so los ist. Der Online-Marketing-Rockstars Podcast. Mit Philipp Westermeier.
For the fourth time in English, and I have the pleasure to sit together with a guy that I listen to a lot, but usually I can't ask him questions because I'm listening to his podcast. Today I can ask him questions because he's on my podcast. Our guest today is Brian Morissey, Editor-in-Chief of Digiday, the US and UK media and marketing portal. Is that correct?
Yes, that's very correct. And Japan, Japanese too.
Okay. To me, you are one of the most interesting observers of the American marketing and media scene. And I learned a lot from listening to you and your guests. Maybe let's start out with some predictions. And a prediction that I found on your podcast is you very much believe in paid content.
Yeah, I mean, I think that advertising supported media right now is going through a very difficult time because a lot of people are starting to have doubts on the entire promise of it. We're in this big shift from the analog to the digital media era, and sometimes we forget that we're still in this shift, and publishers are still reorienting their businesses. And when they started to make this shift, they were told that all content should be free, and it should be supported by advertising. Now, the people that were telling publishers this happened to be people in Silicon Valley, where it was to their interests. And now, 20 years on, a lot of publishers are looking, and the only people who have gotten rich are Google and Facebook. Publishers haven't. They're not seeing the money. So I think that for publishers to get back control of their strategies and their businesses from Facebook and Google, they have to have direct relationships with their audience, including having their audience pay them.
And who does that correctly? I mean, who is or can you name a few companies that you think are on the right path or maybe are worth watching from a...
Well, I mean, look at what the New York Times is doing. I mean, they just came out, I think, yesterday with the Times 2020 report. And this is the companion to their innovation report, which basically said we are really falling behind in digital. And so this is looking at the progress that have made and that they have to continue making. It's a very big report. But one of the big things in there is that the New York Times has shifted its business from a business that relied on advertising to increasingly a business that is driven by its subscribers. And advertising is now a secondary role at the New York Times. So I think that is a good example, and we're going to see this across all sorts of businesses where starting to reorient from being overly reliant on advertising. I think one of the sort of stories of this year has been how publishers have their portfolios, both their audience development portfolios and their revenue portfolios, kind of got out of whack. It's like if your investment portfolio had just high growth stocks looks good when the stock market is going up, but when the stock market suddenly isn't going up, you start to be like, maybe I should be in bonds too, because bonds are more reliable. And I think that's what we're seeing, because subscriptions are a much more reliable revenue base rather than an ad market that goes up and goes down and is often at the whims of Google and Facebook.
And then what in the long term is then the content strategy of Google and Facebook? You think that publishers will like go away, or like is that whole? I mean, do they have to pay at some point for content? I mean, to show content on their platforms?
I think eventually they're going to have to make direct payments to publishers for content. I think it's going to move towards that, and I think publishers now want to move towards that. I think you saw that with Snapchat. Snapchat, I think, is an interesting case because they're not yet the size of a Google or Facebook, but they have a lot of sway with publishers who are interested in it. And they don't have a legacy, like Facebook, for all of its like newness, is not super young anymore. So I think what we're seeing is where Facebook was very ad driven, Snapchat is looking to see how can we cut deals with publishers in which we just pay them and then we can keep all the upside on the advertising. And for a lot of publishers, they're saying, hey, fine, as long as the check is big enough, like, great. We're very happy with not being dependent on ads.
And talking about Snapchat, do you think that Snapchat is actually going to play a role in the future platform media world? Or I
think it is. I think it is the biggest hope for a real number 3 consumer platform, and an independent one. I mean, thank God Facebook didn't buy it, because I think a lot of people in media, a lot of people in agencies really want Snapchat to succeed.
So despite all the copying, Instagram copying all the features and the bigger size that Instagram has.
Yeah, they have as a business, they have a major challenge with Instagram copying them and stuff like this, because they'll just do innovations and then I say Facebook is the new Microsoft, because Microsoft's strategy was always let others innovate and then we'll just follow, we'll take the best. And a lot of people derided Microsoft for that strategy, but it's actually a pretty good strategy when you become a very large company. And sometimes I think people underappreciate how large and consequentially bureaucratic Facebook has gotten. Like, Facebook is a very big company stuffed with middle managers who have competing interests. That's why I find it funny when people think that there's like a grand plan at Facebook. There's a bunch of competing interests within Facebook. So the people on the advertising team do not share the same interests as the people on the publishing team at Facebook. So I think that's an interesting thing to watch.
And I mean, but just to just finish up on that, yeah. There's analysts in the US, and I mean, we had on Scott Galloway from the US on stage last year, and I follow him a little bit, and he clearly says Snapchat is not going to even come through to the IPO. Not even the IPO is going to happen because Instagram is hurting them so badly today already. And if he publishes something on Snapchat and something on Instagram and the same product, the response and the engagement is so much higher on Instagram. So you don't see that. You're still positive.
I mean, I'm still positive on Snapchat. I mean, I would bet that their IPO is going to happen.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's going to happen.
And then another company that I observe a lot, that I try to get inspired by is Vice Media, or Vice. And I know that there's been people on your podcast that said that it's a big question mark on why that works, because I mean they have very little reach, but they are able.
The Vice question is fascinating to me, because we're coming out of a time where we had a lot of people who had gigantic audiences and tiny businesses. BuzzFeed, even, like, their business is tiny. Business Insider, like, their business is tiny compared to their audience. Now you can look at it and say, wow, there's so much, obviously Axel Springer looked at it and said, wow, there's so much opportunity here. Look at how big this audience is and they're barely monetizing it. Or you can be like, holy shit, maybe that's not a good business. And I think Vice is interesting because it's always been the total opposite. It has a very small audience. Its digital numbers now, finally people are waking up to the fact that they're completely made up. Because they roll up a bunch of viral sites as Vice media, but they're using a trick in ComScore called traffic assignment, where Vice can pay someone to give their ComScore credit to Vice, even though they're not operating these sites.
It happens on the German market as well.
Oh, really?
I'm familiar with that trick. Yeah.
It's so. I mean, I think it's sketchy.
Yeah, it is. I mean, in the German market, nobody knows that. I mean, it's happening.
And look, gullible media planners. The media buying industry is so screwed up that they cycle through 24-year-olds enough that these kind of tricks work. But Vice has always monetized extremely well. They've always been very good at getting brands to pay them a lot of money based on a cool factor, based on, I don't know, Shane Smith getting drunk with the CMO at Cannes or something. Whatever it is, I don't know if it scales, but it's very effective. Now, to me, it's the opposite question. How long can that last? How long can you have a media company that doesn't have a very large audience command these kind of big-priced ad deals? They've made a move into TV that hasn't worked. Nobody watches. It's the same problem again. Like, it's kind of amazing that they've pulled it off to this degree, is that they've built a very large business on the basis of a very small audience. And they still haven't figured out the audience piece. And
then you just mentioned it. I mean, Business Insider is of special German interest now that Axel Springer bought it. And I mean, I'm on it.
We're going to start to call it the German site, Business Insider, German aggregation site.
What's the perception of that deal in the US? What's the perception maybe of Axel Springer's strategy in the US?
Axel Springer gets a lot of attention because, usually it's American companies coming to Europe, let's face it, rather than the opposite way. I mean, for a bunch of reasons. I mean, American companies typically are more well capitalized because they're VC markets, and also it's harder to break into the U.S. market because it's big, but it's very deep. I mean, there's a lot of competition in the U.S. And I think Axel Springer has been interesting in media circles because it's one of the few European media companies that has been aggressive for a variety of reasons. It's got a bunch of cash, right?
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
The Business Insider deal itself, I think, raised some eyebrows because, again, they hadn't built the business to match the audience. They proved that they could cobble together a fairly large audience, not to everyone's liking by using crummy headlines and doing a lot of aggregation. But with some really solid, good work. But the basis of it was that. And I don't know if Business Insider is. I don't know if they're poised to make this leap into from an era where it was all about building a really big audience, often through Facebook and through platform distribution, and then monetizing that audience through display advertising. This was a display advertising business until like a year ago. I mean, nobody in their right mind, I don't think, would invest or buy at a premium a media business that is a display advertising business in 2017.
That's interesting because I mean that
maybe an insane person would.
So I mean, when saying that, you're also saying display advertising has seen its best days. Is that?
Yeah, I mean it's clearly a product in what do the analysts call it, like secular decline. And those kind of things are fine. You just manage the decline and try to milk money off of it. I mean, the display advertising business has been completely and irrevocably commoditized. Nothing is going to change that. There was this sort of period in the mid 2000s or late 2000s where there was this idea that display advertising, like, if only it was done, it could be done better, and it was going to be innovated with these new units and stuff like this. And then everyone shifted to mobile, and I think it's kind of over. Google and Facebook own that market.
And so your outlook for all these rocket fuel companies, App Nexus companies, whatever you name them. I mean, there's Pubmatic and so many different players that try to. Yeah. It's getting very tough for them.
Yeah, I mean, look what Rubicon Project just put themselves up for sale a couple of days ago. I think every company that is reliant on display advertising still, particularly desktop display advertising, is kind of screwed if they haven't already transitioned their business.
So it's the publishers as well as the middlemen or the technology companies around that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what's is there a way out for these middlemen for all? The Lumascape, and there's so many middleman companies.
I don't think Terry knows the Lumascape.
But you know what I mean. I mean this one famous chart where all these advertising technology companies are on. Is there a way out for all these advertising technology companies?
Yeah, look, I think everyone has been waiting for the ad tech shakeout, and it's slowly been happening, it's not like an all at once thing. It's like a drip, drip, drip. We saw like Audience Science is cutting back. That just came this week, Rubicon already went through this. Pubmatic already went through it. You're seeing deals where the VCs make no money. Clearly the market needs to consolidate because they're fighting each other when Google and Facebook won. Like Google and Facebook have already won. I think Fred Wilson had a blog post recently that that he would never fund like an advertising business now because it's Google and Facebook's game. Does that mean that there is not ways to make money in ad tech? Of course there is. It's an optimism. Like when you're in like an industry or a product that's in secular decline, it's about trying to, squeeze more money out of it, get more efficient. And that's sort of where the opportunity is. It's not very inspiring.
Okay. So, but that said, your outlook for ad tech is kind of bleak. Your outlook for banners
it's January. This is a depressing time.
Let's then shift over to agencies. I mean,
it's getting worse. So.
It's getting worse. I mean, we have Gary Vaynerchuk on stage in March, and I mean, he founded what is maybe one of the fastest growing agencies in the world ever. I mean, he has like 800 people or something now.
Yeah, it's amazing.
How did you do that?
They don't even have like places for them to sit. They're like sitting in like hallways and stuff like this.
Is it happening all because he's Gary Vaynerchuk, or is that happening because I don't know. What did he find?
I think I won't speak to why Gary succeeded. I'm sure a lot of it is around the cult of his personality. But I think he did recognize in the market that there is a market for a lot of tactical support from marketers that they're not going to pay a lot of money for. And big agencies are not structured to handle that kind of stuff. It's not glamorous. It's not going to New Zealand to shoot, an epic film. An advertising agency is ripping off its client when it's calling its video a film. It's always a good tell. But instead, it's like doing things like, making sure that like racist comments on your brand Facebook page are deleted immediately. I mean, this is not high level stuff, but it requires a bunch of young, poorly paid people to do.
And that's what VaynerMedia does, among other things.
You said that.
I don't know. I'm just asking.
I'm just asking questions here. I mean, look, my understanding is, there's going to be people like, at the top, who supposedly are doing like creative strategy and stuff like this. But the bread and butter of agencies are young, poorly paid people.
Oh, it's always been the case like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's never changed, right?
Yeah. I mean, I just think it's more in focus now, because margins are being compressed so much by clients, which is one of the things. Like, I think if we were to like go down like a list of all of the bad parts of the media world, we would very quickly. There's like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. There's like 2 degrees of the client is the fault. The marketers are at fault for most of the ills of digital media.
Where would you put your money today? I mean, if you were a CMO of like a major brand, would you go to TV then, or where would you spend your money then? Would you spend it with Facebook or buy some AdWords? I mean, obviously it depends on the product.
It does. Depends on the strategy. It depends on I don't know where I would put my money.
Do you believe in influencers and all this influencing things?
Oh, that's another bubble that's ready to burst. I'm very negative all of a sudden. What is this?
I don't know.
We're
maybe
in Germany. I've had we had a.
It's a sunny day.
We had Wiener Schnitzel last night.
Yeah, I know.
A few beers. It was lovely.
All of a sudden,
wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a great night. I mean,
maybe it's the jet lag. I don't know. I think influencers are another one of those things where. I think media has always been a lot of like smoke and mirrors, right? And, digital has kind of brought a little bit more rigor to it. There's a little bit more accountability, but a lot of it is still kind of bullshit. It's kind of made up, right?
I don't know. I mean, I see companies actually successfully building on influencers. I mean, there's these brands that have basically...
Right. But it's desperation, right? I mean, so like I always think that there used to be I've been covering this stuff for like 15 years, even longer, probably 17 years. And for a long time, what I did basically was trying to explain to marketers why they were so far behind consumers, right? Now I almost feel like marketers, they all have FOMO. They all have fear of missing out. And they're almost ahead of where they should be. So they're always looking for like the next thing that's going to solve their marketing.
That's because your side and our side tells them to do that. I mean, we're like the hype machines. I mean, we tell them, look, there's opportunity on Snapchat, exactly. There's opportunity on that. And then they could go back home and feel like they have to do that.
Yeah. That's actually a great business model of a lot of people. That sort of ties back into to VaynerMedia. This is a tried and true business model of a really good salesperson who goes and scares clients or, that they're falling behind, and then sells them the sort of vision of how they can, it's like, oh my God, I don't know what Musical.ly is.
But I have to put some money there.
I gotta pay. I think influencers are the same thing. I mean, we've done a bunch of like confessions around it where we give people anonymity in exchange for honesty, and the influencer ones are always very eye-opening because there's such a lack of transparency in that world that's really interesting.
Ganz kurze Unterbrechung und Hinweis auf unsere alten Freunde, da sind sie wieder, von Casper. Casper, die meisten von euch werden es längst mitbekommen haben, machen eine ganz besondere neue Matratze mit Besessenheit-Design zu einem schockierend fairen Preis angeboten. Die Casper-Matratze kombiniert federnden Latex mit stützenden Memory-Schäumen zu einer preisgekrönten Schlafoberfläche, die nie zu hart oder zu weich ist, sondern immer genau richtig. 2015 wurde die Casper-Matratze vom Time Magazine zur besten Erfindung des Jahres gewählt. Und man kann sie in Deutschland, Österreich und der Schweiz kostenlos bekommen, also versandmäßig umsonst. Das kostet natürlich einen Preis, aber der Versand ist umsonst. Man kann dann 100 Nächte Probe schlafen und wenn man dann der Meinung ist, es passt mir nicht so richtig, kann man sie kostenlos abholen lassen und bekommt sein Geld zurück. Also extremer Glaube ans eigene Produkt. Die Kollegen bei Casper sind bereit, selbst nach 100 Nächten zu sagen, okay, wenn es nicht passt, dann Geld zurück und wir holen es auch noch sonst wieder ab. Wer das ausprobieren möchte, wer auch mal bequem schlafen möchte, was Neues sehen möchte im Schlafbereich, geht auf casper.com/OMR, dort wiederum den Code OMR eingeben und es gibt 50 € Preisnachlass auf den Kauf einer Matratze. Erholsames Schlafen.
So you think that influencing is not going to be a topic in the next years?
Oh, I think it's going to be a topic. I just think that there is a bit of a bubble, like a lot of money. Anytime a lot of money sort of goes in, I mean, it's like relative, but a fair chunk of money went into this. There's always a lot of, mouths at the trough then. So I think a lot of these influencer marketing campaigns don't map back to real business objectives. And they're getting expensive.
Well, do you have some prices in mind that are paid in the US?
I forget what we've reported on the prices of some of this stuff. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but I know from our marketing team, the people who cover marketing, that they say that their sources are telling them that the prices demanded by these influencers are like getting out of control.
Okay.
We've seen that. I mean, it happened remember the mommy bloggers?
Yeah.
They all of a sudden became this powerful force, and then they kind of receded.
What's the success story, or what's a business model that came up recently that you truly believe in the media and marketing universe? I mean, is there something that you say, I haven't seen that before, but that seems like a thing that could play out?
Okay, I wouldn't say that. We had talked about this, so we can argue over it. I wouldn't say that it's new because I do like what some people are doing with subscription models in a very crowded category where you would say there's already too much of it. Like that is not a good idea. Like where there's an oversupply, the idea that's free. Why would you be able to come in and charge for it? And they focus relentlessly on quality, and they've broken a ton of stories. And they're building an interesting business. I think whether it becomes large or not, I don't know. But I think that a lot of publishers can look at it and learn some from it.
The information, that's okay. And then is it it's a similar case with the new company that the Politico founded?
Yeah, the Axios company. That's still to be seen. I'm always very wary of companies that launch and make a big deal about themselves before they've even done anything. To me, I guess maybe that strikes me as sort of weird. People who are they keep talking about, oh, we're going to do stuff people haven't done before and stuff. I kind of prefer people to just why don't you do it and then talk about it later, or maybe not even let other people talk about it. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think it helps with recruiting and stuff like this, but, and maybe investors like that kind of stuff. They want to feel good about the fact that they gave someone a bunch of money and now they're out everywhere talking about it.
And anything else besides the information?
I mean, do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's always, it used to be
You're building an interesting business. You're not going around talking about it all the time, right?
I talk about it a lot because I have to.
Yes, because you're building the business, but not oh my God, Philip is so great because he's in Hamburg building a really interesting
I try not to
sizable business.
I try not to self-promote too much. But I mean, I also see that how it works for guys like Gary and everything. I watch what a Tim Ferriss does. What do you think of a Tim Ferriss story? I mean, he's extremely successful with all that thing.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't know. Maybe it's just because of my personality. It would seem exhausting to be. I mean, I guess that's why Gary is who he is and Tim Ferriss is who he is because I would never want to do that. Would you? It would seem exhausting to be on all the time.
Yeah. I mean, but
Gary is on all the time. He is always on.
For him, it's probably like the way he works. I mean, he gets a lot of feedback, and that's what he feeds off. And then he says it. He said it on our podcast that his narcissistic self is enjoying all this feedback and all these selfies and all these things. And maybe it works for him. I mean, then good thing for him. He can make money with that.
Yeah, I will say this, Gary. It is. I don't think it's an act. I will say that, like, just over the years, he's like done, like, I'm probably, like one of, like, 19,000 people who have somehow like entered into his like orbit briefly over the last like several years. And like, he would like periodically drop me a note, like, how's it going, B? How are things? And I'm like, fine. Like, why are you? But I'm like, and what I end up thinking, I'm like, is he doing that for the other 19,000? It's possible.
I mean, I find him at least,
So if you come to Online Marketing Rockstars, you'll get to meet Gary Vaynerchuk, and every few years he'll check in with you.
Yeah. I mean, what I have to say about him is, I can't follow everything he does, because he puts out a podcast every day now. He puts out a photo every couple hours. I can't follow everything, but as you said, I find he's not trying to be somebody else. He's who he is, and he just plays his game. And now he calls it social documentation. And I mean, there's millions of people that like to see that. I mean, and he understands. I mean, he's completely aware of the rules. I mean, he's leaving his kids out, his wife out. He's just doing that for his business side of his life. And I mean, I think it deserves respect, because there's so many other people that would like to do that have the same narcissistic side, and that dream of being Gary Vaynerchuk, but they can't, because he's so good, and they can't be.
But I think the key, that what's admirable there is that it's not just self-promotion. Like, he's actually building a business. Yeah. It's not like his business is the self-promotion is not the business.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely. That's true. Yeah.
Most it's a side business.
Yeah. I mean, the line of self-promotion and marketing and all these online marketing guys is so blurry these days. I mean, you have a hard time.
But how many people are out there, with their sort of charismatic social media presences and stuff like this, where that's all there is? Like, they're lecturing people about businesses, but they don't even
exactly.
Have
and
experience
that's
doing
and Gary's real. I mean, he has business. He made money, right? I mean, serious money. Supposedly, but much more.
Some good investments that'll pay off. That's for sure.
Who else is out there? I mean, who else is in that space? Who else do you notice in the marketing and self-promoting?
The self-promotion? I don't know. It's funny because I don't have as much exposure to it anymore. Mostly just because. Our own business, it takes a lot of time and energy and focus and stuff like this. So I find increasingly, and I've tried to do this in 2017, I'm trying to tune out a lot more things. Like, we've got a good team and stuff like this, and they're out. Like, I don't go to CES. I don't think I'll ever set foot in South by Southwest anymore and stuff like this. Mostly just because,
You've seen it all.
Yeah, but I think it's just like, well, part of it is, I think you get really jaded, as maybe the previous half hour has shown. I hope I'm not. I'm actually fairly cheery in person, I think. But I think it helps to have like fresh eyes in this thing, because you can start to get like just reflexively negative on things. And so I like our sort of younger people to be exposed to this stuff more. But it also gives me a chance to really just focus internally and on our own business and our own like company and stuff. Because I think sometimes you get too focused on like what's going on in the environment, and you lose sight of the inside your own organization and company and stuff. So I would like to, I want to spend less time on Twitter and more time like having like coffee with people who work for me.
Okay.
That's like sort of my social goal.
One other thing that's going on in the US these days, and that in my mind is at least a little bit related to digital marketing, is the new president-elect, who is at least he's very successful in digital marketing. Is that correct?
This is like very polite of you to say.
Yeah, I mean it's very
very respectful of our soon-to-be new president.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you talk about brand challenges, America is going to have a brand challenge for hopefully 4 years, maybe 8 years, unfortunately. I think Trump is not necessarily a marketing phenomenon. I mean, I think it's a larger issue that we're seeing across a bunch of societies that are grappling with modernization, basically. People see their economies changing, they see their societies changing, and there's a societal chunk of people who don't like that. There's a group of people in Germany who don't like, people wearing a headscarf down, the street or something. And there's a group of people in America who feel the same way. And there's also a group of people who just who feel sort of disconnected, I think, with how the economy is evolving. I mean, it's benefited a large group of people tremendously. But it's created a lot of losers, and I think that Trump's been able to tap into this discontent with how things are evolving, and they're all different things. And everyone wants to pin it on one thing. It's not like all the people who voted for Donald Trump are racist. Some are, but some are people who understandably have seen their livelihoods completely changed from underneath them, while a large group have been telling them, well, you should just sort of retrain yourself as a nurse instead of, since the paper factory closed down. And, these guys are like, no, I don't want to be a nurse. I think Trump was very good at identifying that, where a lot of people missed. And I think the sort of marketing part of it was a little bit secondary. But he obviously knows how to market and how to manipulate a media system that is in many ways broken.
Have you followed the story about this Cambridge Analytica company that supposedly had this very advanced targeting?
Do you ever notice how it's always after elections, whoever wins suddenly had this great data operation? I mean, he won it was such a fluke that he won, a complete fluke. And so afterwards, people are trying to identify all these secrets to success and stuff like this. I don't think that there's an appreciable difference of the data capabilities or the polling capabilities of the Democrats and the Republicans. I always think it's, in hindsight, afterwards, the winners get a disproportionate amount of credit for their tactical choices, and the losers get a disproportionate amount of blame.
I mean, I would bet if you look across the US marketing events the next couple of months, there will be a lot of people that have supported Trump and be telling their story and be invited to their story, and nobody from the Clinton team will be presenting they're
taking that off their LinkedIns. I remember when Obama won, all of a sudden Blue State Digital was this miraculous, thing that, Obama used this thing called social media in order to triumph. When in fact, Obama triumphed because he's a once in a generation politician. No offense to Blue State Digital, but I think Trump happened to be, it was a perfect storm.
There was an article in a Swiss magazine, and it got so much attention in the German digital and marketing industry. Everybody I know read this article about how this British company with some advanced metrics and software helped Donald Trump target the right people and tell the right messages, and is able to detect by 5 or 6 likes or 7 or 8 likes on Facebook who that person is and who we would vote for, and if it makes sense to target him with ads or not. And it got a lot of attention. And
I think it got a lot of attention, but I think my suspicion is that a lot of this stuff gets attention an undue amount of credence because not everyone, a large group of us is very confused how this could happen. And we want to find some rational explanation or a series of rational explanations for something inexplicable that happened, that simply is not in our conception of reality. And so if we can find a bunch of rational explanations relating to data, demographic changes, and all these sort of things, that will help us sort of come to terms with what was just a completely inexplicable event. You could say. I'm very excited.
Yeah.
I'm very excited.
Very analytical.
Very excited for the next 4 years.
What's your take on, what's your perception on the one thing that Germany is market leading in digital marketing? You know what that is? You know which company that is really disrupting the marketing industry is German?
No.
You don't?
No.
I mean, it's probably not. It's not Facebook relevant, but it's really relevant in the US and globally, and it's a German company. They're called IO, and they do AdBlock Plus.
Oh yes, of course. What's their reputation here?
Very mixed. I mean, obviously, millions of people like what they do and use the product and block advertising. The publishers don't like it, and many of the middlemen that have to pay to get their ads whitelisted.
Nobody likes them.
They don't like that. But I mean, the model is successful in the end.
Yeah, to me, what's more interesting than ad blocking is the reasons driving it. And I think the reasons, to go back to one of our earlier parts of the conversation, is publishers have lost control over their businesses in some ways. They've lost control of their strategy. They've lost control of their monetization. They're forced right now, but they choose to. They're forced by the system in order to make money. They have to do things that are not in the interests of their audience. And that's why I'm interested in models like the informations and moving to subscriptions, because it's really hard to operate a business where you have to every day make choices that are not in the interests of the person who's consuming your product. And as long as you decouple the way you make money from the product that you're making, you're trying to serve two constituencies, and it's really hard. It's doable, but it's hard. And
so what does it mean for AdBlock? Is that a company that's going to be around for a while, or is that?
I don't know if that company will be around. I assume that it's going to become like a chronic condition. It's kind of like DVRs. When TiVo came on, I remember people were saying, "Oh, it's going to kill TV advertising." TV advertising is still with us. DVRs are still with us. I think that there'll be, publishers. Look, a lot of the stuff is blocking, at least in the U.S. Most of this is blocking desktop display, and
that's that anyways.
Yeah, so it's like, okay,
who cares?
They're solving for a declining asset. So
maybe then AdBlock Plus is also suffering from the display advertising problems.
Well, they have to move to mobile. I mean, let's face it. I mean, you talk about all these businesses that are challenged because they're focusing on sort of yesterday's news with desktop and display. I mean, they're kind of the same way, unless they can start to get real uptake on mobile. And then their problem is most of the consumption time is happening in apps. So I don't know. Good luck.
So to end this podcast on a positive note, I mean, you mentioned the information as a company that you are hopeful for, or that you're looking with a positive interest.
Yeah. To be fair, mostly because we have our own subscription program rolling out that we've rolled out. So I'm very interested in it because I want us to figure this out too. I think that direct payments are going to be an important part of our model.
And is there any like classic media or advertising company that you think is doing a good job? I mean, they all are challenged. The world is changing, and they all are getting disrupted here or there. But is there like a management team or a company that you think is like a bigger company that you think is doing a good job, and like can be an inspiration to our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that there's parts of what a lot of people are doing that I like. I mean, I'll just like cite one. Like, I'm impressed by how The Atlantic is like changing its business. I'm impressed by what they're trying to do with Quartz. I don't know if it will end up working in the long run, or if they're building like, you know, a lasting 100-year brand with Quartz. But I think the fact that they have leaned against a lot of this commoditization with custom ads and with, I think for the internet, a high enough commitment to quality, I think is reassuring. And I think it's reassuring that it came out of a very old legacy media company. I think there's stuff going on at Bloomberg that I think is fascinating, really interesting. I think Justin Smith is one of the smarter guys in media, the CEO of Bloomberg Media. But then again, it's very nice when you have a terminal business that pays the bills. I wish we had a terminal. Digiday terminal. Pay us $50,000 a year, you get a box.
And a monitor.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for sharing all that, even though some of your observations are critical, or at least skeptical on some of the...
Skeptical, let's go skeptical.
Skeptical on some of the developments that we see in the industry. But I mean, it's good for us. I mean, since we are the Rockstar brand and we'd like to see stuff positive, to hear a voice of caution and of an adult voice of doubt here and there. So thank you for sharing and thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you, Phil.
Bevor es vorbei ist, ein Hinweis auf eine unserer neueren Innovationen, kann man sagen. Und zwar haben wir gesagt, okay, wir starten dieses Jahr am 1. März in unser Rockstars Festival, also am Mittwochabend, bevor es losgeht. 1. März, am 2. ist ja dann unsere Expo, am 3. ist Expo und Konferenz. Am Mittwochabend, bevor es losgeht, gemeinsam mit den Kollegen von Territory, der ganz großen Content-Marketing Firma, die ja zum großen Teil zu Gunnar und Jahr gehört, mit denen gemeinsam, den Content-Leuten, haben wir uns ein Format ausgedacht, die Content Communication Night, und versammeln da so ein bisschen zu einem ganz großen Abendessen Freunde, Macher, Treiber rund um Content Marketing. Ja, und würden uns freuen, wenn ihr dabei seid. Das Ticket ist sozusagen ein teures Abendessen. Das gibt es da auch wirklich. Es gibt also alle, die ein Ticket kaufen, kriegen eine gesetzte Karte, sitzen da am Tisch mit allen direkt eingeladenen Gästen und bekommen halt richtig ein Menü. Das Gesamtpaket kostet 150 € und wie gesagt, es ist halt schon ein sehr teures Abendessen zugegebenermaßen, aber man bekommt es halt auch in guter Gesellschaft und ja, mit viel Content und viel drumherum. Ja, wer sozusagen am 1. März hier bei uns mit diesem Format ins Festival starten möchte, wir würden uns freuen. Schaut mal nach unter concomnight.de oder über unsere Webseite, auch in der Navigation concomnight. Pamela Reif ist da. Konstantin Eis, einer der Gründer von Casper, über die haben wir hier im Podcast heute gesprochen, in der Werbung zumindest, der ist da, der Marketingchef der Lufthansa ist da, der Marketingchef der Deutschen Telekom ist da. Ganz, ganz viele spannende Leute. Seid auch dabei. So, bis bald.